Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Thank you. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Bhad Paramahansa, Parudika Acharya, Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Parudika Acharya, Ashtotar Shri Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayan Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jai Mudirit. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the Goddess of Learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Mukunda Prabhu, can you pull those curtains for me? Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord who is glorified in transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 18th day of November 2017, in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in the third canto, the status quo, chapter 27, Understanding Material Nature, text number 23. And Prakriti Purushasyeha Dayamanat Vaharnisham Tido Bhavitri Shanakar Agniryo nirivaranihi. Pakati purushasyeha. Dahyamanat vaharnisham. Tiro bhavitri shanakar. Agniryo nirivaranihi. Pakati purushasyeha. Dahyamanat vaharnisham. Tiro bhavitri shanakar. Agniryo nirivaranihi. Prakati purushasyeha. Dahyamanat vaharnisham. Tiro bhavitri shanakar. Agniryo nirivaranihi. Go ahead, Mukund. Prakati purushasyeha. Dahyamanat vaharnisham. Tiro bhavitri shanakar. Agniryo nirivaranihi. Right? Prakati purushasyeha. Dahyamanat vaharnisham. Tiro bhavitri shanakar. Agniryo nirivaranihi. Tapas. Prakati purushasyeha. Dahyamanat vaharnisham. Tiro bhavitri shanakar. Agniryo nirivaranihi. You want to try it? Go ahead. Prakati purushasyeha. Dahyamanat vaharnisham. Tiro bhavitri shanakar. Agniryo nirivaranihi. Prakritihi, the influence of material nature. Purushasya, of the living entity. Iha, here. Daihyamana, being consumed. Tu, but. Aha nisham, day and night. Tadaha bhavitri, disappearing. Shanakai, gradually. Agnehi, of fire. Yonihi, the cause of appearance. Iva, as. Adinihi, wooden sticks. Translation? The influence of material nature has covered the living entity, and thus it is as if the living entity were always in a blazing fire. But by the process of seriously discharging devotional service, this influence can be removed, just as wooden sticks which cause a fire are themselves consumed by it. Please repeat. The influence of material nature has covered the living entity, and thus it is as if the living entity were always in a blazing fire. But the process of seriously discharging devotional service, this influence can be removed, just as wooden sticks which cause a fire are themselves consumed by it. Purport. Fire is conserved in wooden sticks, and when circumstances are favorable, the fire is ignited. But the wooden sticks which are the cause of the fire are also consumed by the fire if it is properly dealt with. Similarly, the living entity's conditional life of material existence is due to his desire to lord it over material nature, and due to his envy of the Supreme Lord. Thus his main diseases are that he wants to be one with the Supreme Lord, or he wants to become the lord of material nature. The karmis try to utilize the resources of material nature and thus become its lord and enjoy sense gratification. And the jnanis, the salvationists, who have become frustrated in enjoying the material resources, want to become one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead or merge into the impersonal effulgence. These two diseases are due to material contamination. Material contamination can be consumed by devotional service because in devotional service these two diseases, namely the desire to lord it over material nature and the desire to become one with the Supreme Lord, are absent. Therefore, the cause of material existence is at once consumed by the careful discharge of devotional service in Krishna consciousness. A devotee in full Krishna consciousness appears superficially to be a great karmi, always working. But the inner significance of the devotee's activities is that they are meant for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. This is called bhakti, or devotional service. Arjuna was apparently a fighter, but when by his fighting he satisfied the senses of Lord Krishna, he became a devotee. Since a devotee also engages in philosophical research to understand the Supreme Person as he is, his activities may thus appear to be like those of a mental speculator. But actually, he is trying to understand the spiritual nature and transcendental activities. Thus, although the tendency for philosophical speculation exists, the material effects of fruitive activities and empiric speculation do not, because this activity is meant for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Okay, before I forget, I have to mark this because there's a grammatical error. Did you catch it? This is my life, see? Finding these little errors. Hold on a minute. The last sentence there. Thus, although the tendency for philosophical speculation exists, the material effects of fruitive activities and empiric speculation do not. Now, what's missing there? It's supposed to be, you know what an ellipsis is? Do not exist. Isn't that what it's supposed to? Do not exist. But you don't have exist to work with, you have exists. So the way it reads now, thus, although the tendency for philosophical speculation exists, the material effects of fruitive activities and empiric speculation do not exist. Does that sound right? No. It has to be fixed. Just I thought I'd let you know that. Did I do Om Jnana? Not yet. Okay. I'm not sure. I think I'll just add the word exist after do not. Isn't that what you're supposed to hear in your brain? Anyway. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Okay. So, Kapila Muni is continuing to answer the question that Devahuti posed, which is, how in the world can the living entity ever get free from entanglement in this material world? The mind, since time immemorial, has been absorbed in the modes of nature, in the two aspects of trying to decide and experience pleasure and avoid pain. And this has been going on so long, there's a vast number of latent desires and tendencies and things that we've accumulated that are there subtly in our consciousness. And they if we don't have any kind of spiritual process, then they will be affecting us. They will make us go here and there and take a new birth again and again and again. This is the process of transmigration. The material mind, in a human form, let's just work with the human form, we're constantly, the mind is sankalpa vikalpa, is scanning through the senses, what's pleasurable, what's painful. And some remembering also, oh, this was painful, this is pleasurable, it may look pleasurable, but it's not. There's all kinds of things, because that's going into the intelligence as well. But we have so many impressions that come into the mind just in this one lifetime. And some of them click with our desires, and we want to strive to enjoy those things. And if we actually are able to enjoy them to some degree, then that cements the desire and increases the desire to enjoy again and again and again. You can never be satisfied. And then you die with those unfulfilled desires, and you take another body, and it's going on like that. So it's practically inconceivable just on a logical plane how you can ever end this process. It has a life of its own, so to speak. It's established for so many millions of years we can't even imagine it. How can you reverse it or cure it? So this is a good question from Devahuti. Now, there are various strategies for doing that. One of the strategies is to withdraw the senses by the force of will. Now that, the old adage of out of sight, out of mind. Right? So if you're not if all kinds of sense stimuli are not coming into the mind because you don't perceive them, you don't hear them, you don't smell them, you don't taste them, you don't touch them, then you're not going to be attracted. So that's the logic of going off to a secluded place. You can't do it in the city. You're not going to be able to do this mystic yoga of just quietly sitting down and working on the mind, controlling with the pranayama and withdrawing, pratyahara. Pratyahara is one of the processes of the 8 processes of mystic yoga. Yam, niyam, asana, pranayama, pratyahara is number 5. So all of them are important. Yama, niyama. We have our own yama and niyama. Yama are actually the don'ts, and niyamas are the do's. Yeah. Yama is the don'ts. Believe me, I just looked it up because someone said the opposite a few days ago. Yama is the don'ts, because it makes perfect sense. Before you can even begin any process of yoga, you have to stop doing all kinds of nonsense, isn't it? In other words, if I say, get up early in the morning and sit down and start meditating for 10 minutes a day. Well, what you have to stop doing is sleeping. You have to stop sleeping, and you have to stop all kinds of things that may be distracting you. And you have to. So the don'ts, could include our 4 regular principles. You can't really begin any devotional service. I mean, devotional service is so powerful. The chanting is so powerful that you can participate in that, even when engaged in all kinds of nonsense activities, drinking, smoking, having sex, illicit sex. You can still do kirtan, you can still get some benefit, but you're not going to really get very far. The old anchor, remember the anchor? If you're rowing the boat, you're building up your muscles, You're going about 3 feet and then you push back. But the anchor is down in the boat, you're not going to go anywhere. So we have our own regular principles, and there's so many other don'ts. Go into the nectar of devotion. There's 64 things that you have to try to avoid in the temple. It's good to know them, Like, I just wanted to mention, you're not supposed to bow down on one hand. Both hands have to touch somehow. So if you have something in your hand, you put it down, put it in your pocket, put your bead bed over the back of your neck somehow or other so you can get both hands under it, even one finger. So, that's, who would guess? Who knew, We have to try to tell Stephanie, you know her, right? Yeah, not to bow down, not to do dandavats. Women don't do dandavats. Yeah, she can ask the other women why, but that's one of the rules. Who knew? Who would guess? That's one of the rules in the temple. And so the yam and niyam, Now in the mystic yoga process, go to a secluded place and sit down and no sex. You have to get far away from any kind of stimulation like that, and even then, it's very, very difficult. And Arjuna refused it. He said, "I don't think I can do it. The mind is like a raging wind." We forget because we have so many wonderful things to think about. Starting with the holy name and devotees and the books and if you're trying to practice mystic yoga. What have you got? You've got your your breathing, you've got your mind, you've got your, okay, I understand Vishnu in the heart, I can visualize that, you know. But that's pretty tough, even to try to just imagine doing it. Arjun said, forget it, you know. It's like trying to control the wind. So, how are you ever going to succeed in withdrawing this mind from its entanglement in the modes of nature? Not by mystic yoga, you know. So Krishna gives the hint in the Bhagavad Gita. He gives explicit instructions, beginning of chapter 7. At the end of 6, he says, of all the yogis, the ones who are always thinking of me, who are devotees of me with great faith and love, you know, they're the best of all. So if somehow or other we can entangle our mind in Krishna, then that does it. The mind, the process of Krishna himself will clean away all of the anarthas and the latent desires. It will all be burned up. So that's why the 7th chapter begins with this Maya Sakta Manapada. Now I'm going to teach you how you can have your mind actually attached to me. In other words, in a natural way, not in an artificial way. Attached to me, and you come to know me in truth. You know, jnana and vijnana. You'll understand theoretical as well as realized knowledge. And so 7 really is the beginning of the first of the 6 essential verse or most important chapters in the Bhagavad Gita, 6 through 12. 12 is all about devotional service. And so what we're hearing now is an analogy. How the living entity is in the fire of material life. Sometimes it's compared to an ocean, sometimes compared to a blazing fire. Samsara davanala. Davanala means forest fire. And but the spiritual master is saving, right? Samsara davanalita loka tranaya. So how is that? He's saving not by himself, but by giving the process of devotional service. And what's the second verse? Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nritya Gita. This is the most important gift. By the process of Sankirtan, congregational chanting of the holy name, from whatever platform you're coming from, it's so powerful that it acts like a blazing fire, Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. Isn't it? Isn't that the first line of the Shikshastika? We should know the Shikshastika, even if you just know the English. Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. The mind is just like a mirror. Whatever it comes through, it reflects and absorbs, and you see yourself and the world through that prism, through that lens, so to speak. So after many, many years and lifetimes in this material world, the mind that we have is covered with the dust of material desire and fears. There's always the negative aspect also. And anxieties. This is all part of the impurity in the heart. And it's like, you know, thick, greasy layer of dust on a mirror, you know. It doesn't come off easily. It doesn't just come off by shaking, you know. But, so that's one analogy. Then he gives another analogy. It's 7 metaphors, really. But the process of Harinam Sankirtan, Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam, extinguishes this fire, of blazing fire of material life. Now here, a little different analogy is used, that the fire of devotional service can burn to ashes the impurities in the heart and consume it, and so that it goes out. And the way I understand it here is that you've got the same activities of the senses. Just like you have this fire, the wood is causing the fire. The wood has within it the fire. And then if you ignite it, then eventually the wood is consumed. So the cause is consumed by the effect. That's the whole idea. So within us we have the ability to practice devotional service. And how do you practice? With the very senses that are repositories of all this latent desire that are imprisoning you. You see? So with the very senses that are now causing us so much misery, and you got to include the mind in the senses, the 6th sense. You know, you use that mind, you use those ears, you use that tongue, the hands, the eyes, everything in Krishna consciousness, and that is also a kind of a fire. We say, stay in the fire, like the iron in the fire, right? And that fire will consume all of those latent desires and actually purify them. If desire to eat, that can be a huge attachment here and a huge source of sin. Right? Eat anything and anything, and then you'll lose your human form of life. So eating is very essential. It has to be done. It has to be a way of doing it spiritually. It has to be drawn into the process of devotional service. And there's the whole process of offering, preparing the food, certain kinds of food that Krishna wants, with a mood of love and devotion, offering them for his pleasure. The consciousness is everything. The consciousness with which the ingredients are bought and prepared, the cleanliness of the place, it goes into it. That's important. And then when you partake it as the remnants of Krishna, accepting him as his remnants in good consciousness, then that purifies any sins that you may have caused by eating. In other words, that in itself is an act of devotion. It's reciprocal, very important act. And it goes for everything. Now, the most important and foundational act is hearing. Our consciousness is so much formed by hearing. Just think of when kids grow up, how do they learn? Everything they're hearing from the mother, from the father, and from the teachers. And reading is just a kind of form of hearing. So what we hear and what we read it goes to a large extent, forming our consciousness. That's why the hearing is so foundational in Krishna consciousness. And the books, Prabhu's spiritual master, since Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when the technology became available to print books en masse and distribute them en masse, then it became incumbent upon any sincere Vaishnavas, especially those following the mood of Lord Chaitanya, to be into writing books and distributing books. That was Lord Chaitanya's instruction to the Goswamis. Without that instruction, where would we be without the books of Rupa Goswami and Baladeva Vijayabhushan? Let's not forget that when we read the Bhagavad Gita, to a large extent, we're reading Srila Prabhupada's translation and explanation of Baladeva Vijayabhushan's commentary. Now, where did he learn this from? From Vishwanath Chakrabarti. And it's all coming from the Goswamis, it's all coming from Lord Chaitanya. That's why I say, Gauravani Pacharine. He's preaching the words, spreading the words of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we have now, due to Prabhupada's efforts and those who followed him, we have an ocean of sound vibration and words to read that we can then use our reasoning faculty and our reading and our memory and all of these things. Otherwise, all those faculties are processes of bondage. There's always that choice, right? There's a nice verse in the Bhagavad Gita, it's not so famous, but Krishna says, in essence, when you become self-realized and you're out of the clutches of Maya, you become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that will be heard. In other words, all the material sound vibration and all the other, future sound vibration. And that's really the key. Indifferent to that, but absolutely obsessed with hearing and chanting about Krishna. And you can read the Chaitanya Charitamrita or some of these other books from that era of how attached, how attracted the great devotees are to hearing and chanting about Krishna. Let's remember for a moment that in the transcendental stage, the sound, especially when vibrated by pure devotees, is non-different from the thing itself. Can you imagine just being able to hear the Krishna book and be there, like Srila Prabhupada was? You're actually there, with Krishna in the forest, and all the fragrances and the lights and the experiences and everything, all the people there. That's why it's so much different. Otherwise, you're in the shadow. You're absorbed in the shadow, whether it's the books or the novels or this or that or the movies or the videos, whatever. It's a reflection of a reflection. The material world itself is a reflection, and then you gussy it up and you transmit it, and it's another reflection. And that's what you're absorbed in. You can see how you're getting bound up by that. So Krishna consciousness means probably a cultural presentation for conquering. Culture means, yes, the finest music, the finest dance, the finest plays or videos or whatever you want to do. All should be engaged in the subject matter of Krishna, so that we can, burn to ashes the entanglement. The living entity can actually become free from this entanglement, and that's what's going on here. So then Prabhupada also mentions the other big entanglement, which is not so prominent in the West, but the idea of voiding it out. In other words, of merging, isn't it? The jnanis. Jnanis means by process of speculation, and not, I just think of it as not this, your own body, I mean, Prabhupada does it also in kind of the wonderful way of kind of the light bulb goes on, how you're not the body, you're spirit soul. Well, am I my foot? Well, no. I always say, and I know it's my foot, right? It's my foot, just like it's my shoe, so it's my foot. My foot, my leg, my knee, everything, body, okay. I can say my for everything. My eyes, my this. So in any other context, when you say my, the person who possesses something is different from the thing possessed. Who can argue with it? Okay, so now in our ordinary discourse, we're actually saying, we're actually thinking and speaking on the level of the owner is different from the owned. The self who owns is different from that which is manipulated. Okay, so who is that I? As I is the conscious self. That's the self. So this is the jnanis. This is pure jnana, and that's fine. There's not. I didn't mention Krishna there. But then, if that's the direction you go in, and you don't get to the point of learning about Krishna, which you can't learn just by your own speculation. There's no way you can speculate from here to eternity and never get an inkling about the spiritual world and Krishna, Radha, the pastimes, the qualities. Can't. But you can come to the point of understanding I'm spirit. And those who come to that point, they say, okay, so the perfection is to just live in that understanding that I'm spirit and not be entangled at all in all of this variety. And, it's just Maya, it's just illusion. But the big mistake is, for these Mayavadis, is that because they're envious of Krishna, because they don't want to serve, they don't want to think of themselves as more humble than a blade of grass. They really want to, deep down inside, want to be God, right? At the last snare of Maya. So it's pretty obvious they can't be, the God who dances with the millions of gopis. There's no way they can do that. But I can be the God who's just pure consciousness, Brahman, spirit, like that. So that's what I'll define as, that's what God is. Brahman. And I am also Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. So by jnana, by knowledge, by, once I get out of this avidya and this illusion of entanglement here, then I'll understand that I'm Brahman, the Supreme Brahman, and we're equal, and I'll merge back in, and everything will be fine. But the fallacy is that we're not just spirit. We're pure. We're persons who are pure spirit. It's like Krishna. There's no difference between his body and himself as there is with us. He's pure spirit, Satchidananda Vigraha, a form composed of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Well, who can understand that? I can't understand it. But it's not composed of bhumi, apo, anano, vayu. It's not compared with earth, water, fire. There's no mucus, bile, and air in Krishna's body. Our bodies are a big contraption. Very complicated, wonderful, but nothing but a big machine. That we will never be able to understand fully. But it's still just a machine. And the big shock is when death takes place in one of our loved ones or someone we know. And suddenly the revelation is right there, it smacks you in the face. It's what, wow, that's right, all the blood and everything, it's just a shock. Because you're thinking that's the person. And now the person is gone. And that's why there's something called shmashama. What is this? I forget the word. Shmashama vairagya, which means the detachment that's prominent at the cremation ground. Suddenly you see in India they burn the bodies all the time, And there's the person, and it's going up in smoke, and it's all ashes. So at that point, it's clear that the person is different from the body. And one feels detached. One wants to become detached, understanding that, you know, it all leads to that everything leads to this destination. So what's the point of just getting involved in bodily affairs, which ultimately come? You know, there's a kind of, therefore, we find in the Bhagavatam, when Chitraketu, when his son died, the story of Chitraketu is amazing. You know, as soon as I read that, and when the sixth canto was coming out, and I said, this should be a movie. You know, it's so dramatic. He has millions of wives, can't have a child. You know, he's a king. King without a son is like, you can imagine the anxiety. You know, who am I going to pass all this on to? So, I forget all the details. One Muni comes. I don't think it's Narada Muni. And says, okay, look, you know, give this sweet rice to your favorite wife, and then she'll get pregnant. So he does that, she gets pregnant, and the child is born. So there's jubilation. He's jubilant, you know. And he asks, well, what should I name the child? We'll name him Harsha Shoka. Harsha Shoka means jubilation, lamentation. So he's thinking, okay, you know, every kid is like that. You know, he gets into trouble, you know, he has some shoka, but he brings so much joy. The alarm bells didn't go off. So then the wife gets pregnant, she has a child, so the son is born, you know, and he's, you know, everything. But what about the other millions of wives? They go mad with envy because now he's favoring her even more. And out of madness, they murder the child in his little cradle. You know? So I think it's a nurse discovered him, and you know, he goes yelling and screaming through the halls of the palace, and the mother, you know, comes, faints out of anxiety, and Chitraketu, they have a scene of him going through the halls and hitting the wall, beating his head, you know. You know, it's like he won the lottery, then he lost the money, you know. So in that mood, you know, in that situation, when he's feeling the supreme agony of gain and loss of material, Narada Muni comes and brings the child back to life, the soul back in, and the soul starts preaching to him about how, whose father am I really? I've had so many fathers, and it's, you know, like that. Something happens similar to the son of Srivas Thakur. It's another story. Anyway, after all that, Chitraketu is enlivened and enlightened, and he takes sannyas, you know. And he meets, Narada Muni gives him a mantra, he chants it for 7 days, which is unheard of. And he realizes Sankirtan, the beautiful prayers, you know. And then he goes traveling around in one of these flower airplanes, and he's going all over. And, you know, he's detached, he's chanting about Krishna. But he sees Shiva and Durga. And they have this special relationship. They're like, she's on his lap, and he's in the middle of all these sages. So he makes some comment, you know, he was covered over, made some comment, you know, some insult. Shiva didn't mind, but Durga was very, very insulted. And she curses him to become a demon. And so he takes it, like Pariksit took the curse. Well, okay, this is, you know, my just desserts, whatever happens, happens. And eventually, I won't go through the whole story, he takes the form, reborn as Vritrasura. Asura means a demon. But Vritrasura was actually the devotee. Chitraketu was inside the demon. And so even though he acted like a demon, and you had this big battle with Indra, Vritrasura was invoked on a sacrifice by Tvashta, who was a great Brahmin. So when you do that, it's considered the son. So he's the son of a Brahmin. He's a Brahmin. Even though he's a demon, big demon, he's a Brahmin. So anyway, to make a long story short, Indra eventually kills Vritrasura. Vritrasura goes back to Godhead. Chitraketu, Vritrasura goes back to Godhead. Indra, he has to suffer for thousands of years for killing a Brahmin. So he has, you know, personified sinful reactions chasing him and everything. It's all so it's quite a story. But the idea is that when we are faced with the traumas of this material life, is when we can really see the truth of this philosophy. Is that when you're lying there on the bed, okay, after all these years of life, now you're lying on the bed in a hospital, and it can go on for months or years, extreme suffering. What good did all of your, carefree life before that do you? All the sense gratification and everything? You're just in a totally depressed state, and what now? I have no hope, This is material life. And it happens every day. Millions and millions of people are going through it. So Krishna consciousness, we try to understand before that time comes, janma, mrityu, jara, vyadi, threefold miseries, try to understand. And while we have our senses, we can use them according to our desire. We're not in some agonizing situation. Connect with Krishna so that the mind becomes purified and we can become, actually, hopefully transcend these three modes of nature and be equipoised in happiness and distress. Be able to refuse the allurements of Maya and be able to tolerate the kicks of Maya. They both have to be tolerated to maintain equipoise. The mind has to be at the point of equipoise. Shuddha sattva, peace. That's the peace we're looking for. It's mentioned right in the 2nd chapter of the Gita. So the only way, especially in this age, to achieve that is by using all the senses and the mind and the intelligence, everything we've got, in connecting it to Krishna. And we've been taught how to do that, beginning with hearing. And then the fire of that activity burns to ashes all the sinful reactions. And beyond that, it waters the creeper of devotion so that we're positively coming to the point of enjoying prema bhakti. The goal of the devotee is twofold. Not so much for liberation, but to enjoy, like anything, serving Krishna, by giving Krishna enjoyment. I'll repeat this phrase again. I'm kind of want to keep it in my mind. Jiva Goswami defines the essence of bhakti in this little prose Sanskrit phrase. Bhajaniya padama purusha sukhamatra swasukatvam, which means to take one's only pleasure, in only happiness, in giving the happiness to the worshipable Supreme Person. Now, how can you do that? That sounds, who is he? I don't know, So, that's why we learn about Krishna. We try to, Krishna reaches out, by chanting. It happens miraculously. We don't know how it's working. By chanting the holy name with intention and trying to give up the offenses, just by that exposure to Krishna through his holy name, no matter if we're chanting purely or impurely, but we're trying. The intention is the key. The intention, Prabhupada makes that point. Two people sweeping the floor, One person is sweeping the temple room floor, and one's sweeping the bar next door. They could use the same brand of brush, and they could use up the same number of calories. But it's a completely different activity, because one person's intention is to do it for the pleasure of Krishna. They're not thinking of some salary or something. And the other person, he's just doing it because he's getting paid so he can pay his rent or whatever. A whole different activity. The intention is the key. So, if our intention is to please Krishna, or even just the intention is to somehow concentrate on the name of Krishna, which pleases him very much, as a yoga process, then we automatically become attracted. Just as a young boy automatically becomes attracted to a young girl. We all experience that. You don't have to learn about it, the techniques. That's going to happen. So similarly, if we get exposed to Krishna in the proper way, from the proper source, then we'll become attracted, and that attraction is the greatest blessing. And cultivating that attraction will negate all this lower attraction, and the soul will eventually be extricated from the material world and reinstated in our original position as eternal, Satchidananda, full of knowledge, full of bliss. We have to have faith in it, because it's really hard. It's so easy to fall back, become inattentive, offensive, get out of the association, and then get all the lower inputs. And this looks like a big dream, a myth. But if you're actually doing the process, you understand that this is a whole big illusion. And if you're in the illusion, you can't understand it unless you get help from outside. You cannot, nobody can understand it. They're just